Hey everybody, it's Bill with Let's Talk Dubs, and I'm here with our guest and also sponsor of the show, George, my brother, George T. Tsagrinos with the Wagon.
How's everybody doing?
This is going to be, we'll be doing our interview sections of the video. George's background is he's been in VWs for just as long as I have, 20 plus years. He's built quite a few cars. I can remember that one of the ones you're probably most familiar with is the carbon cab. George did a lot of work on the carbon cab to finish it off where I couldn't quite take it to the finish line. And then he also built a red crew cab for a customer that was
Featured in Hot VWs and Volkswagen. As far as the carbon cab goes, that thing came to us painted, and Bill did a lot of the suspension work himself, and we just kind of refined it. Buddy Hale actually did the paint on it, so I just want to make sure we don't try and take credit for that, And Bill did a ton of the work himself, and we did like the finish work on that. Cars that I'd say, the 62 double cab I built, and I wish I knew the actual magazine it was in, but featured on the cover with my brother when the carbon cab was featured, but it also got its own feature in Hot VWs and also in Volkswagen in the UK. I've also built a 63 Convertible that was featured recently in Hot VWs. Actually, one of the first issues when Hot VWs was taken over. We actually submitted it before Hot VWs had their little change of guard, but luckily it made it into the new change. The new guard took it over and featured it.
So, George, let's just get into kind of the first of a series of questions that I'm going to ask you. So, how did you get into Volkswagens?
My brother, Bill, right there, he picked me up from work, and he had Hot VWs. Or I'm sorry, he picked me up from school, and he had a Hot VWs in the car. It might have even been a Trends. I think it might have been VW Trends, and it had a bug on the cover called Tweety Bug, and he had that, and I thumbed through it, and of course they looked really cool. And then he got one, and then you actually drive one, and you realize just how simple and how cool a car it is, and that was it. That's all I needed. Plus, I always want to be like my big brother.
So then the first car you built was what car?
So the very first car I built, my brother got me a '73 Squareback.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he traded like a two knob head unit. If anybody's familiar with stereo stuff, a two knob head unit for this car. This mechanic shop had it. It was sitting back there forever. Bill was working at the stereo shop next door. Did some finagling with the guy. He got me a Squareback. I always wanted a Squareback, so he got me one. 73, but he got me a Squareback. Yeah. So that was the very first car I actually got running, driving. Hideous.
See, what was interesting, what you might not know behind the scenes, is that George didn't have much experience working on cars, and he decided to go full-blown surgery on this car, trying to make a late model Squareback into an early Squareback. So
no, horrible.
In the process of that, George actually went from making two cars to two parts cars
to
pretty
no
quick.
Cars. So really quick, unfortunately.
But your first real car that you built, what was your first real car that you built?
I built a 68 Squareback I think I built that thing in 94, 95.
Yeah.
So I had a Squareback forever. It was my daily driver, and I just slowly collected parts for that thing. So I went to Mississippi to visit my mother and my sister, and I come back, and my brother did me the great service of stripping my car down, my running, driving only car down, and he was going to get it painted for me for that weekend.
Right.
So
it was like overhauling, but it took a little too long, so
yeah.
it didn't quite happen. But I was going to hook my brother up with a paint job while he was gone.
So I come back in town. I pull up, and my Squareback is no bumpers on it. It's been sanded, all my trim's off of it, and I'm like, what happened to my car? And mind you, I didn't have all my parts saved up for it. I had a ton of parts, and I was buying them slowly but surely. And then we're talking in the 90s, there was no ISP West to call. There was nobody to get Type 3 stuff from. West Coast Metric, what they had is you're lucky if you got it. So that car was built from Pomoto Swap Meet, the both of us, finagling people and getting my little parts and pieces I needed for it.
So it was a black Squareback with a white roof, full-length roof rack.
Yeah.
2-liter alloys. Red.
When it was actually done, so my vision for it was I wanted it to look like an oval window interior. I love the Firestone red. I love the mohair headliner. I love the tan carpet, all that stuff. So when I was building that thing, I had West Coast Metric Custom make me a headliner, and I made $8 an hour back then, and I paid like $300 and something for a mohair headliner in the '90s that they custom made for the Squareback. I bought an entire bolt of Firestone red to do my seats in the proper Firestone red for the seats to be proper oval window. And Carrie Barbeau, a great friend of ours, she stitched up everything, and it absolutely looked gorgeous. I was very stoked, and I was making $8 an hour, and we built a full-on. Now this is a lipstick restoration. The exterior was done. I never really did like undercarriage stuff, but it was a beautiful car that took my first time out. Took first at Classic, first at Spring Jamboree. I mean, when it showed beautifully.
Also to put things in the proper context, back then you didn't have full detailed builds like that. The full detailed builds that you had like that were non-drivers.
No, I was a tile setter's helper. This is what I did for work. I wasn't physically like, yeah.
But what I'm saying, what classified a show car back then, it wasn't full detailed undercarriage. Like typical show car was a driver that was super clean paint, super clean interior, nice complete car. But like the mega builds nowadays, that wasn't it. So for all intents and purposes, I know George keeps trying to downplay it, but this was a show car Squareback driver that was a show car, literally a show car that he drove around. Super nice car.
I did tile out of the back of that thing.
Yeah,
I was a tile setter helper, and all I had was my Squareback. That's the only car I had to drive. And I would show up on job sites. Matter of fact, I met a good friend of mine that way. He just came up to me and said, "Why are you driving this thing on a job site?" Because it was a beautiful car. I mean, stunning car for back in the day. And he just couldn't believe that was what I had all my tools in the back of, and driving this dirty job site in a black Squareback that has a show quality paint job on the exterior.
It was your only car, so I mean, that's what you had to use. What you had to use.
We grew up poor, so we didn't have. There was no such thing as a secondary car. Like your car was your car.
So you had the Squareback. You first time you take it out and you show it, you get first place in the Jamboree, and you get first place at
96 Classic. I took first place. Actually, Vegas did a little clean sweep that year. Everybody who took their car out there to debut that year actually took first. Derek Campbell had taken out his green and white bus that year, and it was the first time I debuted my Squareback. And he took first in Type 2, and I took first in Type 3. So it was really cool. And there was a couple other Vegas guys who got mentioned. I just can't remember at this time, but it was pretty stunning because when growing up, the cars we looked at were the Cali cars. I mean, they were the ones that made us want to build these really cool cars, right? And to go there and actually win in their territory. And we didn't know people. We didn't have friends in clubs or anything. That was people's choice back then. And like to build something, your car was voted to get first place. The only trophy I have is my 96 Classic plaque. Yeah. That is the only one I kept because the Classic, I know now it's a shell of what it used to be, but back then it was 2,000 cars, and I mean, it was jam packed. It was craziness.
I think that the Classic was the event to be at for the year.
100%.
It was where you wanted to be. That was the show everybody was shooting for. Obviously, everything changes with time, but still, even up until recently, it was really kind of the premier show of the year. And I think part of that for us was mostly because living here in Las Vegas, every VW shop is basically an off-road shop that might sell some fender beating or some parts like that. So the reality is for us to go down there and see like a full-blown shop that sells street stuff, street car stuff, and street tires and all that kind of stuff. And the shops here would kind of dabble a little bit in it. They didn't have nice street bugs. They had like nice Bajas, but they might bring in some 135s because that's what people were using.
Las Vegas had a very strong off-road scene, and when I say strong, it's what even got us any of our VW shops here. Everyone started as an off-road shop,
right?
So there weren't the shops you walked into that had the rubber on the walls and had the pieces you need to build your car. Everything you had to find, and obviously this is way before the age of the internet. So when we built cars, it was a hunt and a search, and that honestly, it was part of the fun and the beauty of building cars was the hunt for the parts. Yeah. I had so much fun at Pomona. Late nights, we would literally drive up there, pull up in the parking lot at 4, 3, whatever the heck in the morning, get flashlights out, and start walking around looking at people's stuff. And we weren't alone in that process. I mean, there was a different adventure when you were building a car back then. When you hunted for the parts, it wasn't on a keyboard. You had to actually physically get out and find the parts, hunt them down, literally.
Well, and I think that's what really kind of made that time there. So that was probably the best time with Volkswagens. I mean, in my opinion, like for us being young and building, there was a lot of cars. It was really a transitional point. You went from like the mega show cars at that point to then the kind of the vintage throwback things started coming in, where the impy stuff started getting really popular.
Yeah.
Roof racks, all that stuff came back. So that to me, I mean, some of the popular cars at that time was like Scott Smith's Black 67.
Lone Wolf.
Yeah, that was like the mega impy car. And then I remember, one of the first shows we went to, there was that, I don't know what it was called. It was a black oval window with earlies and deeps on the back. And it had a chrome rocker
with the puzzle
panel with the puzzle pieces coming out, and the seats all folded
The seats
down.
were like 80s, just like boxes.
But it was an interesting time because we were kind of there for the transition of, there's been lots of different evolutions of the scene here or there. So that being said, let's get into how you go from just being an enthusiast to then opening up a shop. So you own a shop. So George owns a shop called the Wagon.
So me and Bill had a company together called T Brothers Tile, and that's actually what I did for the majority of my life. But I always worked on my own Volkswagens. Very rarely would I got ripped off once. One time it took me to get ripped off on my '68 Squareback, and I never let another person's hands touch my car again. And I always said I can do better than that. So, 2007 came around. Me and Bill had T Brothers going, and I just wanted a change in my life. I was kind of done with the construction industry. At this time, Vegas was going absolutely crazy, and it was a 14-hour day job, and I just wasn't up for that. A lot of stress. So I loved working my Volkswagen. I had the means to do it at the time, so I said I'm going to take my love and my passion and do it for a living. I talked to a lot of our friends, and I would say, who do you take your car to in town? And they're like, no one. I don't. There's not a shop I really like in town. And I was like, so we have a need for it. So I decided to take what I enjoyed as a hobby and make it my profession at that time. Not the best financial decision in life, but hey.
But you just so you go and you open up.
So I opened up the Wagon in
Wagon.
2007.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I tapped a tile setter that we had working at T Brothers, who was pretty crafty in the VW industry, and I tapped him, and me and him actually opened up the Wagon together. His name was Kevin McCain. People know him as Pigpen now. Good guy, He was doing a lot of garage work at the time, and I mentioned the fact that I was going to open a VW shop, and he said, any room for me? And I said, I'll make room. So we had a lot of fun. It was a great success when we first opened it up. I mean, we would have, back then they used to have a VW weekend with the bug-in down at the track, and then also Tom Carson was putting on the Clean and Elite at Town Square. So Vegas had a really hopping weekend.
Right.
And, that's right when Bill actually got into DBK and whatnot. So, like, when we would throw open houses, our parking lot would fill up with 200 cars. It was pretty cool. So
yeah, I think that was the time when the Vegas events started getting to where they could rival the California events.
Correct. I would definitely say so.
Vegas being a natural destination for people wanting to take vacations, and it's like if you can couple your vacation spot with your car and kind of make it a combo. There's nothing better than that, which is why I think it was destined to be such a huge success until politics and all that stuff get into play.
Yeah,
and
just like everywhere.
Nonetheless, so you open the Wagon.
I opened the Wagon. First I was like more of a maintenance shop and whatnot, and we took on a restoration. Matter of fact, the 62 double cab I was referring to, this same lady brought her car in just to fix her floor pans because they were so rusted out. Her name was Karen Nolan, beautiful woman. She came in just to get her floorboards fixed, and she ended up pulling the pin on a full resto. And that was the first one I had ever been involved in to take something to that level. Like body off pan and get legit with it. Like
slippery slope she went down where she came in for a tune-up and ended up with a big
pretty
restoration
much.
Yeah. And I know people that have gone down that road before.
That pretty much fired up the desire to do the higher end work, or not the higher end, the restoration work. But obviously I've sustained off of mechanical work, maintaining people's cars in town, doing suspension drops, building engines, all that stuff that's involved in making a car drivable. I take a lot of pride in the fact that when we mob out from Vegas, we mob deep and everybody's rolling in their cars. Very few of us trailer cars. My brother's guilty of being on the trailer, but that's just because he doesn't, he says he's put his seat time in, so he's not as apt as the rest of us to just jump up there and let's drive.
When you got a Laramie Ram and a 54-foot car hauler,
why not?
I got nothing to prove. So that's one thing. It's funny. It's funny about the scene that where there's there's always this street cred scenario,
sure.
like, and you see it get to the extreme, like Orange County Choppers against Jesse James, and Orange County Choppers sucks because Jesse James forges his own steel. It's like, when does it end? Like, does he ore his own steel? Like, is that what he's going to do? He's going to mine his own.
Yeah.
So it's like, it takes it to a point. It takes it to a point where this whole street cred of like built versus bought, there's no such thing, I believe, as bought, because someone's got to work hard for that money. And so people just have to, and so to some degree, and I touched on this back in the last podcast. I said, when I decided to have the Gia built, I was inspired by a car. And what I did is I was honest with myself. There's a lot of projects, because I've bought them, a lot of projects that die on the vine because someone thinks they got way more skill than they have. And they end up dumping just as much money into a garage project that they sell for 10 cents on the dollar down the road. And at some time you have to be honest. So two things, in my opinion, happen from it. One of the things that happens is you give the opportunity to a shop to prove itself, because without the people that pay for the builds, you would never have the shops that get the reputations. Without the people that have the inspiration to go into the quote unquote investment of building a car, which is a very low pay. It's the worst investment you can do. But the reality is, it's driven by the same amount of passion as the guy that turns the wrench. It's just maybe somebody understands their ability level. And so
Correct.
There's two things that happen. You get, one guy gets his dream realized, while a shop gets the opportunity, the blank slate opportunity in some cases, to design, create, and build what they want. And it's not always the case, So I think it's funny, because a lot of people really want to bag on people that pay to have cars built. And a lot of people pay to have cars built because they either lack the time, the talent, or the wherewithal to make it happen. So, and I'm not saying this to feel like I have to defend anything, because if you look behind us right here, that red bus right there was built in my garage with these hands. So when we're talking about street cred, I see it differently, because I see it as a person that's gone through an evolution from when I was single and I was struggling to build a car, when I was living in an apartment and trying to get stuff and all that stuff. But it's kind of an evolution and a part of life. And I don't think people should be bagged on if they had a car.
I don't think the point even needs to be defended built. Because,
well, no, I'm not defending it.
when you do something like have that Type 3 Gia built, if you have not seen that car in person, you haven't seen it on a lift, you cannot understand the work that went into that car. If he were to do it on his own, he would still be working on that car right now.
Oh yeah,
to have a crew work on it is very different than one guy doing it himself. And then all the custom touches and whatnot that were on it, they all stem from his ideas. He had to give the input into what he wanted built, and then Buddy had to take those ideas and bring them to fruition. Well, it was a partnership in a build. You can't just say like,
correct.
Obviously, other people did labor, and Buddy doesn't even do everything on his own. There were people that did metal fab work. And
There's
stuff
only
like
one
that.
Jesse James who forges his own steel.
Exactly.
Everybody else.
Exactly.
I mean,
honestly, I got flack from other people because, you assemble cars. You didn't paint that car. You didn't do that. Guess what? I paint my cars now. I paint them, and I'll still.
But the reality is, if we look at a project car that you build, you start off with an idea, and then you have to come to a realization of what can you do? What is your skill set? Because you see a lot of people that are determined that they've got a chip on their shoulder, like, I've got to build it. And you look at it and it was like, could have been done, executed 10 times better.
Yeah.
But he had something to prove. But what are you proving? That you're a plumber and you can build cars? That you're a waiter and you can build cars? Like, anybody can assemble things. It's the attention to detail.
Correct.
Look, I'm the last person ever going to tell you that my name is not 3-bolt Billy, because I get 3 bolts on it and I am down the road. And I said that in the last podcast, that I get the car close enough to drive in it and I want to drive it. That's my desire. A lot of people have a real desire to spend the meticulous time doing the things, putting the effort and time into the detail. And that's awesome. And without those types of people, without people like you, people like Buddy Hale, people that put the attention to detail,
Correct.
that put that time and effort into those things.
A shop will always take it to that next level because they're getting paid to take it to the next level.
Well, so that brings us to my next point.
Time and money.
That brings us to my next point. So my next point is when someone says to you like, I want to build a car. What will you quote me to build a car?
So, in the past, I would look and go, oh, we could probably do it for X amount. So I started actually tallying up some of the cars that we built, seeing what we had total into them. The last two bugs I built, one was a 63 ragtop, and one was a 63 convertible, and one was a 62
ragtop.
Standard. No, it was a sedan hardtop. Both of those cars tallied out to about $60,000 total, but they're all fully detailed chassis, forward disc brakes, big engines, built gearboxes. One has Lenny Kopp interior, the other one has a Matt Miller roof on it. I mean, we spent money on those things.
And no question, to build a car right, it costs money, and I think that's kind of the thing that maybe some people don't understand. And when I say right is to different degrees of interior. I mean, I'm completely okay with a car with a non-detailed under chassis that's got the look with the stance, the wheels, the interior, that kind of stuff. That it doesn't bother me a bit. Some of the most fun I've ever had was driving my 67 that I got on a trade, and it was just a Savannah beige 67, but like a flash restoration car. But it was like I didn't worry about the car. I drove to the store. I didn't worry about a door thing. I didn't worry about sprinklers hitting. I didn't worry about things like that. Not that I abused it, but it's like I wasn't a wreck versus driving the.
You can almost enjoy them better when they're not a finished car.
Well,
coming from experience right now, like I have right now a 62 panel bus that's looks like a battleship on the exterior of it. There's nothing nice about it. My underpinnings are great. I road trip it. I drive it. Never have problems with it. It's comfortable, but it's hideous looking. But the beauty of it being hideous looking is, I hear rocks hitting the metal. It's rocks hitting metal. I don't even worry about it. If it was painted and I had cut and buffed that nose and everything else, I'd be sick to my stomach.
But in the same respect,
in the same respect, though,
my attitude on it is like, let's get the first scratch over with.
100%. When
you know what I mean? If
anybody is familiar with Scott Moses' double cab, it's a green double cab on Fuchs. Very nice car. We've got a big 2800cc motor in the back. It's a beautiful double cab. Soon to be featured. We're just actually going to get it shot soon. But when we built that, we finished it. It literally came off the lift. We test drove it around the parking lot, and that thing went to Busted by the Bridge. We're talking a fresh paint job in the same Caravan with the rest of us buses. We obviously were smart enough to put him in the front, but he drove with the rest of us right out of finishing it. And that's not an exaggeration. We test drove it once around the block and hit the road in that thing. I think everybody should drive their car. Will it hurt when you get that chip? Of course it will. Especially if you're the one who put the effort into that nose and got it straight and made the paint shine and everything else that it takes to make it happen. But it's going to happen. Accept it.
Absolutely.
And once it does happen, a weight is lifted.
But the way that I see it, it's the same as buying a brand new pair of pants and getting them worn in and getting them broke in to where they're your pair of pants. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to have a perfectly nice show car for a couple shows. Mm-hmm. After that, I don't even care. Yeah. People were surprised when I'd take the Gia and I left the debut setup and I roasted them leaving because I want to drive the car. I didn't build it so that everybody could tell me how pretty it was. I built it with the concept of like, I want that car where it's built to run. And so the detail of that car would be down another podcast down the road. But the point being is that these cars are built to drive. Some people build them for trophies. Some people build them to drive. I think my opinion is you get the most fun out of them when you're behind the wheel driving them. And even though I tow mine down to the Classic, I have no desire to drive up Baker Grade or be in my bus for 10 hours. But I do have a desire to drive down the PCH or go to a bunch of open houses in Southern California, do things like that. I'd love to do it all day. But the monotonous drive from here to California, I'm okay with leaving it on the trailer and hauling it down and enjoying my drive around down there. But I mean, it's different.
I'm the complete opposite on that
because it's different for everybody.
I love seat time in my bus. There is no happier place on the planet for me than when I'm behind the seat of my bus. I truly feel that way.
And everybody's different. Everybody's got a a different way that they like to do it. I like, but anyway, we're not talking about, we're not here to talk about me. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you.
What's pretty funny is I took a video of myself driving my bus the other day because it's the first time I got it back on the road, and I just set a camera up and stuck it to the wall. And I'm driving down the street, and even though I call it my happiest place, I look very unhappy when I'm behind the wheel.
Right? You know why? Because your face has to match the exterior of that bus. You got to put that grimace on, you got to put a little bit of attitude in it when you drive it. I know. Listen,
I have another video online where I took this convertible I'm building now for its very first drive, and you can see the frustration on my face for a couple things that were actually happening, what was actually happening in the road at the time. But I also I listen intensely when I'm driving on the street and and I'm trying to hear any issue, any problem that's coming up. So I notice I always have this look on my face like that when I'm driving. It's kind of funny.
But no, but it's because you take your craft. I think it's because you take your craft seriously. Listen, it's interesting because George and I we're brothers. We're 11 months apart, and the reality is, to some degree, we couldn't be more opposite. He's got the patience of Job when it comes to working on cars. Me, I remember, driving my Bug one time and the front wheel bearing seized up, and I got because I sprayed some WD-40 in it. Long story, don't even ask about that. I just got done driving.
This is very early VW years,
driving
by the way.
It back, and I got so frustrated trying to take the bolt off. I just took a big steel pipe I had and just started bashing the fender because my patience was really low. In the same respect, when it comes to working on cars, I enjoy doing things, and at some point, I kind of got to the point where it's I enjoy doing things if I've got the time, the equipment, and things to do it correctly. Correct. If I don't, it becomes more of a hassle to me.
I'm spoiled rotten now that I have a shop.
Yeah.
You'll never see me crawling around on the floor underneath the car. I mean, obviously I have to do it every now and then, but I get friends hey, come over and help. No, I'm cool.
Yeah, there's no fun.
I'm 45 years old now at this point. I don't need to be crawling around on the floor.
So now, taking me to my next point. So we talked about the shop. So tell me a little bit about the Wagon. What do you do? What do you do with the Wagon? So that people that don't know you and what you do over there.
So I built my reputation more on my mechanical end, over my restoration end. But I also at the same time was doing restorations. I'm not fast by any means. We're not that kind of shop. You're not going to drop your car off and get it in 2-3 months. That's not us. So for instance, I just took another job in about a month ago, and the quote I gave them was a 6-figure quote, and it's putting a 2-year time frame on it now. I also don't have a fleet of employees. It's me.
Yeah.
It's me. I got a body guy I trust to get my panels straight. I got a metal guy I trust to get my metal replaced and nice. Other than that, it's me.
Do you find it tough to find good employees?
It's extremely difficult to find people who, first off, have the patience for working on the level of cars you start that we work on. It's one thing if I was bringing in Joe Schmo's tune-ups and it's a filthy, dirty car and you go ahead and do this and do that on it. No, I mean, when we are assembling a car, the paint has never been touched. Nothing has ever been touched. So anything you're going to touch it with could potentially scratch it, and the amount of forethought you have to have to go, if I put this on here, what does it do on that end, and whatnot. To train that into someone is extremely difficult. It's almost like you have to have a natural inclining for it, I would say. Yeah. Someone who's going to have the patience and the attention to detail like that, it's extremely hard to find. So sometimes I just prefer to be by myself. Would it be good to have employees? Oh, I'd love it. As a matter of fact, I used to have 2 or 3 guys in the shop at all time, and it was nice, and we were knocking out work way faster.
And so the key, so describe to me, let's say if there's somebody out there listening to this and they're thinking man, all I want to do is build Volkswagens, and they understand that they're going to work at a shop. You're not going to be rich by any means. You can make a really good living, but for you, what would the critical components be for your ideal employee, that if somebody came to you with this determination, what would be the ideal employee for you to hire?
Reliability and attention to detail.
Reliable
meaning you're going to show up every day. You're going to show up on time.
Your job's your number one priority.
You know what? I'm always family first. So family is number one priority at all times and everything. But if you do have a job and you tell someone you're going to be there, here's a crazy idea. Show up when you're going to be there. Here's another nutty idea. Show up on time. And when you're there, put your phone down and get to work. That is the hardest thing to deal with now. Is most people
with
that
the
I
young
hire
kids now with their phone addiction to their phones and can't get off the internet.
It is a serious problem, and I think it's not just obviously I'm in a very niche market. There's not a whole bunch of us out there, But even for any industry right now, I think we're going to be labor starved in the future because a lot of people also don't like hands-on work, and it's work.
So if there's anybody out there that's looking to get their hands dirty, that wants to be part of the scene, that wants to get their name stamped on building some really good cars, there's opportunities out there for you. I know that I was just seeing some other guys on Instagram chatting back and forth that had shops, and they were just super bumming out about not being able to get employees and the toughness that it is. But if somebody wants to live the lifestyle in Las Vegas, which means it's affordable housing compared to California, but in the same respect, there's a lot of vices out here that could get you wrapped up, between gambling and whatnot. But if you can keep your act together, you get a decent cost of living out here. And if you're looking to put some time into a shop and you can prove yourself, and I think that's maybe one of the things is some of these kids don't know that they've got to start at a shop on the low. You're going to start
when I
12 bucks
started
an
the
hour.
shop, I was bottom of the totem pole.
But the reality
you did
is
cleaning, you did stuff like that. I worked at a VW shop when I was about 19 years old, and you cleaned and did the grunt work. You did this work. That's what you were there for. And a lot of people everybody wants to start as the chief. No one wants to be the Indian.
And so, but the reality is, I think that to come to work in a shop, if you're working for the shop or the owner of the shop's got a good reputation, you have a lot that you can learn, that you can add to your repertoire. You can really kind of learn from the best of what to do in a lot of these shops. And I know a lot of the guys that own these shops, they all struggle with finding good employees, dependable, reliable people. So the crazy part is, it's a great thing to be in. And I think maybe Instagram and all that stuff's kind of ruined it for people because they think it's instant car builds and stuff like that. And it takes time, effort, and energy. And you don't see the hours put underneath the rear apron. When you see pictures of Buddy Hale and those guys sanding the underneath of the rear louvers, I'm sitting there looking at it like, that's why I wrote a check, because the last thing I want to spend my Saturday doing is doing that. So the reality is the level of detail that people put into building these cars to deliver the quality it's expensive. In the same respect, if you're going to put the money into it, you might as well do it right. So, and I think, again, if anybody out there is looking for a place, how can they get to you, George? They get you on Facebook at the Wagon?
We got a Facebook Wagon page, the Wagon,
so
on
the Wagon
Facebook.
on Facebook.
Instagram, I'm George CVW.
Okay.
I was thinking about firing up one for the Wagon there, but I just kind of do it off of George CVW. Maybe in the future I will. The problem is someone in France has the Wagon on Instagram, and they got like 6 pictures of their bay window up there, and that's it. So unfortunately, I don't have the Wagon on Instagram. I didn't have the foresight to jump on that one.
So,
but you can contact me on the Facebook page. Like the page, it sends me a message.
Like the page, and then that also reminds me that if you like what you're hearing here, make sure you guys click subscribe, and also like our YouTube videos. And also, if you've got questions of future episodes that you'd like to see, go ahead and hit us up. But so let me just do kind of a quick fire round with George here real quick. Ask him some questions. So George, favorite type of VW?
Single cab bus.
Single cab bus.
Single cab bus.
Just one. That's it. You got to go with it.
Just
Single
love
cab
it.
bus.
There's something about it. I love the fact it's just 2-seater because there's just enough room for a player and a freak.
Right.
And
Sir Mix-a-Lot. Gotcha.
exactly. That was a Sir Mix-a-Lot throwback right there. It just has the look when it's laid out. There's just something about it just so freaking cool.
Yeah. Okay. So your favorite motor combination?
What I have in my bus right now, 2332 FK7 cam, mild heads, nothing too crazy, but it's a stump puller.
Okay.
It's a torque monster.
And then your favorite style of Volkswagen?
Resto Custom. Always has been. I love...
So right now you're driving a Ratina, but you like a Resto Custom. If your bus...
My bus, when it's done, will be, I would say, leaning more towards like almost a pro touring look because of the import wheels I have on it, the big brakes behind it, all that stuff. Like, it's going to lean way more towards the pro touring side. But Resto Custom, I love the look. VW knew style. They knew the color combinations, all that stuff. So there's nothing finer than it laid out with a nice narrowed beam, Fuchs or whatever you plan on putting there. But that's my favorite style.
So
I'm not a fan of shaving things and getting all crazy with it.
Right. So give me we'll edit that out. So give me if you can pick and build your own Volkswagen, I'm going to give you 15 seconds to build your ultimate Volkswagen. What's it going to be?
Oh, well, I'm going to stray from the single cab here. It's going to be a double door 15 window
Okay.
with the rag top.
Double door 15 window
They
with a
never
rag
made it.
top.
I just don't want 23 windows.
Right.
I don't want the skylight windows.
Go ahead.
Single
Keep
cabs
going
were
with
my favorite because I've owned it and driven it.
Right.
My dream VW is a 15 window.
15 window.
A 15 window bus.
Double
is
door,
just-
you said?
Well, I'm saying double door because if you're gonna, you said if I'm making
It's
whatever
your
I
dream.
want,
It's your dream.
I'm
I'm not
going double door
don't
15
let me hold you
window
back.
with a rag top, and that's something like that.
With a
I
rag
have
top,
a
keep
62
going.
bus now, and its future will be I will graft the 15 windows into
So,
it.
give me
I
the
will
bill.
potentially make a double door. Well,
So 15 window, rag top,
15 window rag top.
wheels.
BBS LMs,
The
though most
BBS
likely,
LMs.
like I said,
Okay.
my bus will be a 15 window in the future, God willing.
Motor trans setup.
If my 2332 ever blows, it's going Subi powered. I mean, I just can't
Yeah.
see not doing that. To get that kind of power out of a car and to drive it, and I know that's sacrilegious to a lot of you guys, but, you know, I've got serious money into my 2332, and I built it myself. And I have a ton of money in it.
Yeah.
When you can get a Subaru, and you can put it in it, and it's super reliable, and it's grabbing those hills the same way, even better. Oh, and if I happen to save up enough money and get the Subi gears to back it, where you got 5 speeds,
Right.
so
Yeah.
then like 85 is your average cruising speed,
Right.
whereas right now my average cruising speed is about 70, 67,
Pushing it,
somewhere there.
pushing it, yeah.
Not pushing it. That's
pushing
pretty mellow. Pushing it, I can get that bus to do 80 all day long.
I got you, but
Cruising, where I feel comfortable with my RPM range as I'm driving, I'm pulling hills, all that stuff. 70 miles an hour is my cruising speed right now.
Yeah.
But that motor's tacked up because I only got 4 speeds in the back, and I don't even have a 3.8 ring and pinion right now. I got a 412 in mine, but I put some meats on the back of mine for that very reason. I'm running a 215/55 in the back of mine. If anybody knows tire size, that's a beast. When I hit dips on the freeway, my bus slows down from it hitting the top of my wheel wells. But it gave me that extra leg I needed on the straights and the downhills to where it could really get pumping in speed.
So wrapping this up, anything you want to leave us with in regards to kind of what's coming up, what's new, what's going on for the wagon, what's new, what's coming up, and what kind of things you're doing right now?
So we are going into, when we're recording this, we're going into 2019 right now. This is actually the week before New Year's that we're doing this. But I have an auto stick 68 convertible that'll be coming out this year. I have one 13 window deluxe and a 21 window full air ride Wagons West suspension. I'm hoping all 3 are completed this year. The 21 is a stretch because of the fact we're going super custom on that one. That's going to be hopefully what I would consider a next level build. I got a customer who's willing to throw the coin in it, and we're willing to put the work in to do it. And I got an amazing metal guy right now that's just killing it at the shop, and we're doing a lot of custom touches to this thing. It's going to be a one-off build. But the 68 auto stick, I'm super proud of that one because that's my first paint job. That's the one I sprayed. That's the one that, everything on it that's been detailed was detailed by me. I painted everything. I did all the detail work. So that will be one that I can truly look at and go, that's my build. I consider all my builds my build, but that's the first one that I had my hands on the most, and I'm actually super proud of it. It looks amazing.
You should be. It's a good-looking car. I know the guy did some of that wiring stereo work, man. That guy's phenomenal.
I actually had my brother help me on that one.
These hands showed up and did some work. Hard to believe, but it happens sometimes.
And he actually did clean work because he had good direction telling him what he wanted.
I had this guy over my shoulder force me to do clean work.
My brother actually used to do some really nice work back in the day. And he did it really fast.
I think I was paid by the hour to do it.
Also, we get older. You have less time, unfortunately, to spend in your garage. So you start cutting corners here and there.
Yeah, as you start to see it, as you see I finally have my dream garage here, and my dream garage is packed with stuff that's stacked on top of stacks. And so one day I'll probably have a garage clean party, invite all you guys over, and we can help. And you never know, you could leave with some extra parts.
Lucky you guys.
I've got lots of cool stuff here, and maybe some of it might leave with you. So anything. All right, George, your favorite show. Your favorite VW event is what?
Oh, Buses by the Bridge.
So Buses by the Bridge is your favorite VW event?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Once again, I love driving my bus and just being by the lake, and it's just such a cool environment, and just the people that go there. And
so Buses by the Bridge, favorite event.
Yep.
And
Prado's slowly catching up to that because we had, I'm part of Las Vegas Volkswagen Club, and for the first time in a long time, we're doing club stuff, which is good. So we get our own space at Prado that that the club all participates, and we do it as a group now, like a family. Yeah. We plan out our menus. We do everything to where it's a club event. So I love that. I love the camaraderie of the VW shows. So.
All right.
Prado and Busted by the Bridge, for sure. As far as like shows, like we do a show at Sunset Park here.
So when's that show coming up, George?
It's March Meet. It's going to be March 2nd, 2019 at Sunset Park. If you're in town, out of town, whatever, make your way over there. It's really, really laid back. It's not a show. This is a meet. You're allowed to bring your pets, your barbecue. Come out with your entire club, set up a whole area, and you guys have a good time cutting it up. We do a top 10, we do a best of show, and we do club participation. We try to streamline it. We're not looking for 75 trophies, 100 trophies out there. We're looking for, hey man, these are the top 10 cars that we walked around here. And when we walk around, we try to pick a mix of everything. So it's not just like, you're going to see 10 buses there. And also, any Las Vegas Volkswagen Club member, their cars are excluded. We're not in the mix. We're there. We represent. We all have our cars out there, but we are excluded from the award ceremonies. None of our cars, regardless of whatever. And even if I built a car, I won't allow it to be in there because I never want to hear any of that kind of. People have a tendency to get really upset at shows.
Are you bringing up politics and drama again?
Yeah, well, it's a really unfortunate side effect of our scene. It really is.
You got to rise above. Yeah. You got to rise above it sometimes. I mean,
you do.
It's the challenge that sometimes just people are when they don't know what to say, they always have to say something bad about somebody else, tear somebody else down, and it happens. My attitude in the scene, this podcast can be about building up the scene, kind of bringing people together. There's no need to try to tear people down on this podcast. Nope. Our goal is just to give everybody some good VW talk to listen to, some great stuff. Last question I'm going to give you, George. Any show you could go to, what show would you go to?
Volksworld
Super Show?
Volksworld Super Show.
I know a guy that could arrange that.
I know. He's always like, just take time off. Like,
bro, you just got, remember he said sometimes you just got to take the time. Sometimes you just got to take the time.
I hear you.
But I agree. I can tell you right now, I've been to EBI and I've been to Volksworld Super Show, and I really like the Volksworld Super Show.
I tell you that
it's a great show.
The UK scene just seems like it's freaking awesome. I mean,
it's a different scene.
What we need to do is a Volksworld show in Vegas.
A Volksworld style show.
Volksworld style, not Volksworld. We're not going to those guys in the UK.
Here, the reality is something like that could happen. I mean, Vegas is the ultimate destination to do a car show. To set it up right, you just got to have the key players in place to make it worth going to. But with that, we'll go ahead and end this episode. I'm sure we'll have George T back a bunch because besides he's my brother, he'll also be in for some good conversation, some nice little back and forth. But George, anything you want to leave anybody with before we end the podcast?
Just keep dubbing. Have a good time out there, man. Drive your Volkswagens. That's what we build them for. Get out there.
All right, guys. So George says drive your Volkswagens, and don't forget to check us out, like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, and see you next time when we're going to be Let's Talk Dubs.
A Volkswagen is a nice station wagon to have around the house. The 1974 Volkswagen, covered by VW